Nancy, did you sign in over there? Did you sign in? I wish it was more Valentine. I said I used to dress up, Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Cindy. What a great reminder that is. Well, I know we're looking forward to hearing John. John's my friend. I met last May, and there had been a notice going out asking anyone in Judson that could come and help us lay down the floor mats, because it's a big job. And so John showed up, and he not only showed up to help us lay down the floor mats for the garage sale, he showed up to help clean up, which we really need, and he brought his sister, who's a student at Wheaton. So we just so appreciate it. And I said, you're an honorary member of Friends of Judson. So here's John, our member and good friend, and the manager of the bike shop here on campus. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a true privilege to be able to join y'all for setting up and cleaning up. And I know the Friends of Judson does a lot behind the scenes for Judson that many students probably don't even know about. And there's so much that I wish I could learn from what you guys even do, and even hopefully today. Thank you so much. I got a little bit out of time, so I hope we don't fly too fast. Does this work? Yeah, it works. I love it. Hello, Zoom world. My name is John. I was a student here, became a graduate student. I've gone on a couple of mission trips, even with Lynn here in the back. We went to Oklahoma together, went to East St. Louis in 2016, and then south side of Chicago in 2017. Trying to keep those domestic, and you'll understand a little bit why. My parents are missionaries out in the Netherlands, and here's a little bit of story about the Judson Bike Shop. So we'll talk about the past, the present, and the future. Judson Bike Shop started in 2019, so there's the past. 2024 is today, of course, and then the future is part of our vision for the future as the nonprofit that is the Judson Bike Shop. The past, this is a little slide that shows some of where we started. This is in Wilson Hall on the left here with a couple bikes. I think, yeah, there's the two on the left that it all started with, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a bit about why that's funny. And then over the right, some of the first images on our Instagram at Judson Bikes, where my cousin's bike, pictured in the very bottom and the bottom middle, she was paying $200 per month in Chicago for rent and trying to help teach and work in education. She just couldn't handle the rent on her 2012 car. And she said, John, I need a bike, and I just need to get around downtown. And so we helped her out, and that was the first image. A little bit about me and this story. How many of y'all know what this country here is called? Who can name it?
Netherlands.
Yeah, they got it. So Netherlands is my home country, is where I grew up for a majority of my life. It's a very outdoorsy culture. People are often found on terraces, having a drink together, biking around town, kids biking to school, moms with kids in the back biking to school. You name it, it happens. Groceries, the streets are full of people constantly. It's having a little bit of a density problem these days, but it's a vibrant and really alive community that my parents kind of had us kids grow up in. A little bit about the future and a little bit of the history. It's over 1,000, almost perhaps 1,100 years old as a nation. U.S. here is about to hit 250 here in 2026. And so as we talk about these subjects, in a very small, wealthy, formerly colonial society, it was able to build up lots of wealth for very few people. And people compare Sweden or the Netherlands with the U.S. and a lot. I'm like, that doesn't make sense because this country is almost 250. The Netherlands is almost at least over 1,000 years old and has been developing in those 1,000 years in a very small amount of space, whereas the U.S. is the size of almost like a Russia, and trying to develop the same rate as a country that size, like the size of Russia or Brazil, does not work in the same efficiency, right? So this is some of the current developments. On the left, you see an underground bike parking facility under the central station of the Netherlands. That's a ferry on the right. It's a free ferry that goes across the main river in downtown. And you can see a lot of these people don't even are not even wearing helmets, partially because the infrastructure set up in the city for bicyclists was so crucial to have well done and safe that people don't need them because of the safety involved with being able to get around. It's a perceived safety that they don't need it. You will see motorcyclists and a couple moped riders with helmets, of course, and that's by law. So anyway, back to this story. My career goal at 12 years old as a missionary kid in Amsterdam was to become an architect in the mission field, which is, of course, where the Judson story kind of started taking root. At 27, currently, it's to potentially hopefully become an urban planner someday. So, ideas change. And what was never my goal? To become a bike shop manager or an adjunct professor, which I currently am. And so it's kind of funny how things happen, and I'll tell you a little bit about how we got there. It all started, of course, 2019, Wilson Hall. And there's a lovely couple y'all might know, Chris and Carissa Drent. In 2019 summer, they were the RDs over at Wilson Hall. And I made a deal with them. I said, hey, I'm an international student, but they require me to store all my stuff over at Ohio and then come back to Wilson next summer, after the summer. That doesn't make sense. Could you help me store some of my stuff over the summer as I go home in Wilson Hall somewhere, and then I'll come back to it as a Ryan's RA? They said, sure, but how about this? I know you've got these 2 bikes here to the left. Could Carissa and I borrow those 2 bikes for the summer? Because we don't have too much to do over the summer and it's kind of boring sometimes. So what do you think? I said, that sounds like a perfect deal to me. And when I got back from summer of 2019, there was not only my 2 bikes, Chris Trent brought a moped. There was like 3 other bikes. There was like a longboard, a skateboard. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, what's going on? And all of a sudden this vision was kind of planted of, what if we could use this space for something more? And we started gathering tools. On your right, we had all of a sudden there was like 10, 15 bikes, snowboards, all kinds of stuff. So if you've ever been there, it's the rec room. And we started fixing up bikes for people in the community. This is 2020 now. We don't know about COVID quite yet. We're not there. But as COVID did start to happen, it was the international students that were still stuck on campus. And we tried to help them get outside, have fun things to do. Dr. Kroom actually, at one point, it was a kind of a miracle story. It was a Saturday evening, 9 p.m. on a Saturday. And I had spent the past 3 hours in the shop here, or in the rec room, cleaning up, putting stuff on the wall and adjusting the tables, and there was always a mess. And so I spent 3 hours and I left finally, 9 p.m. on a Saturday. And who shows up on campus? Dr. Kroom. At the doors of Wilson Hall. I said, Dr. Kroom, what are you doing here? I said, and he had a plastic white bag in his hand. I said, well, David is living upstairs. We had a couple students there. And I got him some dinner, so I'm dropping it off. I said, wow, that's very nice of you. And I knew that he had been following us on Twitter here on the right. So he kind of knew a little bit of what was going on, but he'd never seen the space. I said, oh, that's amazing. Dude, could I have 1 minute of your time? 1 minute. I want to show you the space quickly. And he's like, you know what, actually, sure, that's a great idea. So I showed him for about 2 or 3 minutes. And afterwards he says he was pleasantly surprised. Kind of a backwards compliment, but a very nice one that implied, actually what you're doing here actually could help our community. And that, to a certain extent, was some of the miracle foundation, to me at least, of what set forth the Judson Bike Shop. Down here on the right, even in 2020, you'll see Dustin Good, who's a city council member. Even in 2020, he was saying, you know what, Elgin Community Bikes and Judson Bike Shop, this is some really great things going on. And people who aren't believers, even in our community, are starting to see some of this progress. So then, COVID, ridership across the United States went up by like 300%. And people were outside. All other businesses, COVID was a curse. But for bikes and bike shops, if you were at Walmart during that time, all those racks were empty. And I'd never seen that before in my life. So I was there talking with people who were looking for bikes. I said, oh, we got a little nonprofit over at Judson. Even to the point where we now have actually a couple initiatives that are trying to connect the entire country by bicycle trail, coast to coast. This is one of them. It's called the Great American Trail. It's sponsored by Rails to Trails Conservancy. And they're connecting, I believe, across 14 states, from DC all the way to Seattle, and it's going to go through Illinois. Joliet is where it goes through. It doesn't quite hit Elgin or anything like that. There's another one that goes from DC and it goes over to San Diego, and instead it goes through St. Louis. And so there's some amazing things that have been set forth in the past couple of years that all of a sudden I started noticing, I started seeing that the country is ready for a move towards another form of transportation. Kane and Cook County, this is on the left, by South Elgin, they put in a new tunnel that if you ever get a chance to walk down there or stroll, there's a beautiful tunnel with a roundabout installed just for bike trails over here by the forest as you approach South Elgin. And in 2020, me and my buddy Peter, who you might know, were biking in Chicago and noticed a bicycle sign that was purely, if you notice the top red logo, it's purely meant for bicycle traffic, the same way we have and I have in the Netherlands that we grew up with. On the right, you'll see how the infrastructure has been redesigned to make it more safe for people to bike on the right, the bus, and so forth on the left. A lot of redevelopments. July of 2020, we got asked with Brian Flickon to renovate the bookstore and turn it into what is currently called the Spirit Store. And over here on the left, what's funny, all these racks and those big bookshelves got sold on Facebook Marketplace, actually to a Judson alum who has a Christian bookstore in Ohio, of all people. It was another God story, and it kept confirming these things. We renovated the space, and people started really having, I think, some good comments about it. I graduated from my bachelor's in 2020, and then went to work for 100-Fold Studio, which is a Christian nonprofit out in Montana. And out there, of course, the Wild West kind of nature, I learned some more about how to explore, but in a mountainous area. So this is ice skating on a frozen lake. I biked up to Canada. I was in Canada for 2 minutes because I crossed over the border, came back. This is in the mountains at Glacier National Park. If you ever get a chance, it's absolutely gorgeous. There's a ministry called Serious Juju over here on the right. I helped do a SketchUp design for a ministry that tries to help young kids get some activity on skateboards in an indoor little facility because it's so cold in the winters in Montana that they otherwise will get involved in drugs or other particular things. And so this ministry helps stay alive with a group of us, about 10 people, who help build and plan out this space to help kids have something to do other than their phones and other things. And that was just some of the stuff that God put in my life as I was able to skate for a year in Montana during COVID. Quite a blessing, honestly. Then, coming back to Judson, Dr. Krum said, "Hey, do you want to do a master's?" I said, "No, I don't want to study anymore." And I said, "I want to work." He said, "Well, okay, you can work for the president's office as a GA." And I said, "Okay, that sounds good." He said, "In exchange, you'll get your master's for free." I said, "Okay, well, you don't have a master's in graphic design, do you?" And I said, "No, but organizational leadership. And hear me out, it's going to work in with the bike shop." I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And I didn't give it much second thought, and I said, "Let's go." So I came back in fall of 2021. The bike shop had kind of had 3 people managing it, but no one really at the same time. And we put it on Google Maps. We finished kind of branding it on the front of the Spirit Store. And then I came up with a plan as part of the Masters for targeting, like a business plan. Well, how do we target? Who do we target? Who in our community? Is it also open to outside of our community? Nick and Bo created the space in the basement that allowed us specifically to be able to also have access to the outside community. Remember, if we were in Wilson Hall, it's only accessible to guys on campus who have Wilson access. So at one point, I actually got even kicked out, so I didn't even have access to it. And so they were really visionary, even though I didn't fully see it at the time. As we're growing, now we're reflecting back, and in 2018, when I came here in 2015, we didn't have access across the trail, and there were 0 bike shops in Elgin. And for me as an Amsterdamer, where there's bike shops like every block, it was like I had to drive to West Dundee, Carpentersville, to Main Street, and I got all my bikes fixed over there because I didn't know hardly anything about it. But once 2020 came around and that big bicycle boom, now Parker here, he had started with the help and the volunteers of Elgin, Elgin Community Bikes, which I have a little pamphlet up here in the back. Main Street is over here on the right with Jeff, and I know all the owners, and a lot of them are friends of ours, and have been to our shop actually. And so we start developing these friendships and these partnerships and talking about advocacy and how we can help people who don't have the means to provide transportation, like a car for themselves, like myself in my first couple of years. What is our goal? To go on good, healthy adventures together. Again, this is pulling people away from their smartphones, away from TVs. As much as I loved the Super Bowl yesterday, we need these God-led adventures for young people, and especially once the trail is right here next to the river. And so that was kind of the mission and our heart. Basement renovations of the space that's there under the campus apartments. This top left is where we started adding stuff at the Spirit Store to make sure we could accept purchases, and we were figuring out how the money system is going to work out. There's a separate fund for the bike shop that's set up specifically so that none of the money ends up in my pocket. It goes to this fund, and we can draw from it to service people's bikes or other events and things for the community. Islam, he's actually a Muslim friend of mine, but he was a student here, and he was passionate about it, and he was helping. And we had a little bike snow plow, all these little fun pieces that maybe will set the precedent for something in the future to clear the trails in the winter. And then we're preparing for the grand opening in 2022. This is the poster we put up around campus. We had actually Friday Jackson, which is a band from our church, very good band, and a Judson band, alternative radio in Milwaukee right now, show up. That's them on the right, and it was meant to really engage the camp community. And as you can see in the bottom right, we had I think about 50 to 75 people show up that particular day, even though there was a 99% chance of rain on that Saturday, and it was a total God thing because you see how it ended at 6 p.m. That same day over here in South Elgin, at 6 p.m. started another bike shop, but grand reopening. And it was Jimmy's Village Peddling. And to me, I was blown away by this because I was like, when in the past decades have there been bike shop openings in Elgin, let alone 2 on the same day? And let alone one from 2 to 6 and the other from 6 to 11. So I went back to back that particular day, and I met Jimmy at the other one. So God provided, that's the whole story. This is where the Crooms come into the story again. July of 2023, actually my birthday is July 4th, the Croom family came out and graciously rented kayaks because now for our summer operations, we had taken some donations of kayaks and purchased a couple ourselves. And later we ended up building a dock because Dr. Croom was like, hey, we need to build something because this mud is terrible. And so now we have, Cindy knows. We realized that it needed something, and again, it's using the beautiful God-given spaces that are right here in front of us at the river, and more about that in a bit. But for summer, it's bikes and kayaks, and for the winter, it was snowboards, ice skates, and then for free, we let students use the sleds, like they did again this winter. Dr. Kroom even supported me on Zoom calls and advocacy meetings that I've been meeting with people from ITEP or Ride, Illinois. And as you can see in the comments, he said what John said, and just very supportive in encouraging this mission, because he also knows that parking here on campus is limited. And having students bike from Linder to the campus commons and other places actually helps the university as well. Here you have Scott Flo, a Rice student who is biking around as a campus safety officer, and we fixed up that bike. And so there's some really cool partnerships that not many people know about. In all of this, my mindset is called the bike gospel. Bikes in a world of cars is a fish swimming upstream, right? We are going against the grain, and just the same way the gospel presents itself in the world. It's upstream, it's against the current. In Illinois, there's an infrastructure grade of D+, according to Lab of 2019. And this is some of the pieces that are perhaps missing pieces that I'm trying to encourage people in my circles to think about and to reconsider, even as Elgin redevelops itself downtown. Unto the least of these, we are called to serve. Whether it's people on the side of the roads or people like myself, international students. I can tell you countless stories of people trying to walk down 31 to get to Metra and almost being killed by a car in the process. And of course we had Nate in Dallas, that incident of somewhat, I believe, an infrastructure related incident of their tragic deaths here on campus. The lack of community versus high rates of obesity and loneliness, right? And this is prevalent within not just Illinois. And so as this spreads like a virus, I would call it a very good virus that spread ever since COVID, because people are realizing, oh wait, you know what, I can maybe bike around my cul-de-sac or my community. And as we do so, as we explore God's nature, it inspires joy, it inspires beauty and healthy community. And so because even as you're riding at a slower pace, you stop and you actually tend to buy more stuff in local cities because people maybe want to get a coffee or a little drink or something, and they see the cute little boutiques and they know the people. And so you'd be surprised the amount of times I ran into Ben Glung's in downtown Elgin, just biking around. This upcoming summer, I'll be moving probably, very thankfully, off campus finally, to the Judson at Grove facility. And this is part of this vision casting is as we gain space right there on the river and the trail, how can that potentially be utilized? You see here the blue marks the Metra and the PACE bus connection. Hopefully students that are master's students there could connect very easily back to the Judson main campus from the Elgin at Grove facility. But I'm also even thinking between the trail that's right there and the basement access from Elgin at Grove, which is prime property, and the river with our kayaks and our bikes, how can that be utilized? How can we envision that space? And if the dam does get indeed removed, perhaps in 2027 is what they're saying, how does that create access for even beyond the city of Elgin? How can other cities be attracted to the Judson community that we have going on here? With this in mind, I'll pass this kind of around. This is for ITEP. Feel free to sign. If not, no worries at all. This is a petition to connect. You see this little strip of emptiness between Judson and Wing Street and then Wing Park. This is a personal mission that that God placed on my heart to help advocate for infrastructure that will make that corridor more safe for people to commute, or even to bike, walk, whatever you want to do. There's an ITEP grant that's about $2 million per project that happens about every 2 years that I've been trying to apply for, and I'm planning to apply for again, but we need a substantial number of signees. So that being said, it's called the Elgin Loop because it would create a full loop across the river between the Fox River Trail, West River Road, Wing Street at the bottom. And in that manner, it would actually allow people from our campus to even get off campus more quickly to downtown Elgin, to Gilboard, yeah, feel free to pass it around, to Gilboard Library, to our other Judson at Grove facility. This is kind of our trend. 2022, we had 212 followers. And as of 2024, we have 421 followers. We're growing, we're expanding our mission and our reach. And in conclusion, I like to leave with the JFK quote, nothing compares to the simple pleasure of riding a bike. This has been our presentation on the Judson Bike Shop, and let's bike.
Wow, we learned a lot, didn't we? John, that endeavor of the bike shop is a very special vision that God has given you, and we're thankful for that. And I'm speaking for us as a group, we're very thankful that you came and shared. And I, for one, am happy to sign your petition because I know the pleasure of riding a bike. My knees don't cooperate so much anymore, but it's something that throughout my life I did and have enjoyed biking. Thank you.
Thank you.